Hi there, my name is Tyrone. I'm a First Nations man. I grew up in Lacombe-Panoka area. My ancestors are from the Saw Ridge Band up in Slave Lake. I'm working in the agriculture industry, providing on-farm services to various types of farmers around central Alberta. This has given me the opportunity to be exposed to new and innovative farming techniques that I would like to bring to you. On this show, each episode will feature a visit to one of these farms. We will visit Verge Permaculture. Permaculture is a relatively new agriculture practice focused on creating sustainable circular systems that will produce food for centuries. Farm 253 is another permaculture farm in the early stages of its design, being developed by Travis and Deanna Thiessen. They are focused on growing and raising their own food without synthetic fertilizers and chemicals, using traditional holistic methods. Perepelkin Farms is a mixed grain farm and cow-calf operation that focuses on growing all their own cattle feed. They are also part of a trial research program incorporating AI to help improve the quality of life of their cows during calving season. Steel Pony Farm is a high-output mixed vegetable farm that uses a subscription box program to feed their local population. They primarily harvest their produce by hand and pursue sustainability by utilizing local sources of compost to maintain soil health and productivity rather than synthetic fertilizers. Good Morning Honey is a large-scale honey operation in Alberta, focused on harvesting unpasteurized pure honey. Their operation involves thousands of hives, providing honey to markets in North America, Asia, and Europe. In each episode, we will learn what makes each farm unique and their long-term goals for sustainability. In this day and age, what's important to me is knowing where my food came from, how healthy it is, what my food is eating, and most of all, how it's being treated. The goal of this show is to highlight some of the innovative work that progressive farmers are pioneering in Alberta to develop long-term sustainability of local food sources. Today, we're visiting Perepelkin Farms. Welcome to Innovations in Agriculture. I'm your host, Tyrone. I have Ashely Perepelkin here, and we are going to be interviewing her about her farm. The interesting thing about Ashely's farm here is in Canada, she's 1 out of 100 of a beta testing group for AI. And in this episode, we're going to learn how Ashely's AI helps with her cattle. Okay, Ashely, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came into this farming?
Yeah, so I met a boy. I was set up on a blind date at Tim Hortons, very Canadian. This is his family farm, so his parents are on it. His grandfather was on it. So when I met him, it was pretty small. There was no cattle. And it was new. It was exciting. It was very different than anything that I had ever been a part of. You know, I rode horses, but it was pretty structured. So coming out to the farm was an eye-opening experience into the agriculture industry that I didn't know anything about. So not too far, you know, we're just west of Red Deer, south of Condor, Leslieville area. So I was not unfamiliar with the Rocky Mountain House area, but definitely it was still all new, very new. So that's how we got into her.
Interesting. So Ashely, why don't you tell us how your farm operates and why?
So we have we have 2 divisions. This is very much an inside joke within our friends and family, but we have Grain Co. and we have Cattle Co. We joke that we keep the cattle and grain operations separate so that our marriage stays happy. My husband is he's very supportive. He's very encouraging. Obviously, you know, he's built me anything that I could dream of or ask of. But when it comes to the cattle, I very much like to have the reins on that one. We had children. We started our family, and I felt kind of restricted. I didn't want to just be a mom. You know, I still wanted to contribute financially to the farm, so that's what really pushed the cattle. But then I did want it to be my thing. I didn't have any experience or history with cattle, so it was all very learning. I think with that, it has allowed me to be a little bit more inclined to the new innovations, to the new technologies, to explore AI and all the other benefits, at least on the cattle side of things. And then he's also kind of adopted some of the technology influences on the grain side of things as well. Obviously, we work amicably together, but definitely better alone for me.
Yeah. So Ashely, what's the benefit in a mixed operation such as you have with the grain and the cattle?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing?
No, there's a lot of benefits to it, you know. As I said, we got into the cattle because I wanted to financially contribute, but we also, it made sense for us. You know, we got into cattle when hay prices were pretty low, and anybody who sells hay can agree that it's a tedious thing to do, and it was a lot easier just to feed that hay to some cattle. So in partnership with, you know, kids wanting to contribute financially, it started as that. And then my mindset of how I wanted to run the operation really evolved. I started to do a farm-to-table beef program where initially, you know, out of convenience of having our own cattle here, let's just raise our own steers. Let's, you know, feed our own things. You know, we put up hay, so we feed them our own hay. I know what's in it. We feed test it. I know what's there. And then same thing for the grain side is, you know, being married to a grain farmer, I have relatively endless supplies of barley or peas or straw or silage or options of what I want to feed the cattle. So it started with, let's feed our family, and then it's grown into how can we help feed others while keeping everything in-house. So I don't buy yearlings, we don't bring in hay, we don't bring in pellets. Not to say that I won't ever if I need to, but it's pretty cool that from the time they're born to the time we go to the plate, I can tell you everything about that animal. I can tell you if they were sick, I can tell you how much they weighed when they were born, I can tell you what they weaned at, I can tell you their name 9 times out of 10. You know, I can tell everything about it. So it's nice having that option of, you know, my husband asked me this spring, he goes, what do you want to see? What do you want to plant? Do you want to plant corn? Do you want to plant oats? Do you want to plant wheat? What do you want to do? So it's nice having that ability to do that. On his end, it's nice having, he can rotate, and if he has fields that are performing better than others, you know, he can put them into a crop that benefits him more, or if he has some fields that, you know, we just freshly broke, or we need the cows to go graze on, or we need the manure from them to help with the fertilizer bill, or, you know, they definitely work hand in hand with each other and are beneficial for sure.
That I didn't know that though. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That just from start to finish, a good peace of mind.
Yeah. And like we give antibiotics. You know.
What do if you don't, you're just gonna let them die?
Well, that's just
you know. Yeah.
So we give antibiotics. We follow all the CFIA guidelines. You know, we vaccinate. We do all that thing. But again, our biggest thing is I want them to be healthy.
Well-being.
Yeah, I want them to be happy. I want them to be healthy.
Yeah.
And if they're fighting sickness and disease and all that stuff, they're probably not happy or healthy. Indeed.
So Ashely, tell me what aspects of your farming operation make it unique?
Me. I came into the industry not knowing anything about ag. And it's a simultaneously open industry at the same time that it's a closed industry. There's some negativity kind of surrounding agriculture and what we do as farmers and what we're doing and feeding people and offering. And I think one thing that's super unique about Perepelkin Farms and the farm itself is I've built it into a brand. You know, not only is it our last name, but it's everything with us. I can't change the name. So with that in mind, I'm very transparent about everything we do. I'm very open and honest about, you know, when we run into issues, these are the issues we're running into. When we're running into successes, these are our successes. This is how we got there. I've been asked many times about our farm to table beef program, you know, price points, how do you do it, how are you feeding, how are you calculating costs and revenue and all that stuff, and I'm very transparent about everything. And I think that is special. I think it's, you know, unique, but that is definitely me. You know, I'm the face of Perepelkin Farms, which is kind of comical because, you know, it is my husband. It's my in-laws. It's a family farm that I married into, but I've grown, together we've grown the farm, but I've grown the brand into something else, and I keep adding divisions of it. You know, we do tallow lotion. So again, getting that kidney fat from the animals that we're doing the farm to table program, trying to make the lotions out of it, just really trying to utilize everything, be sustainable, be economical, and be transparent. Growing up in this city, I was very unaware of all of the things that agriculture provides for us everywhere. And so one of the goals that has really started to grow within the vision the last few years is transparency on what we're doing in our industry, but also on our farm.
Do you think coming from the city with no agriculture experience at all has helped or hindered?
Both. You know, my husband's a very patient man. It's taken some training for me to learn about the equipment and about all the things. But I think it's allowed for me to have a different perspective. It's not, you know, I'm not doing things on our operation because the parents did it and then the grandparents did it, and you know, or I'm not doing things because it's been done generationally. I'm doing things because it's working for us. In that same aspect, you know, it's cost us some money for sure. you know, I've made some mistakes, I've made some bad choices, but then I've also made some good choices. So I think it has, it's played a role on my journey for sure, with the open-mindedness and the willingness to try new things like technology and like, you know, just the cows and the pens and everything like that. I think it has opened doors in the sense that I'm having to learn it. So I'm not just learning from one thing. I'm sourcing many different avenues for educating myself. But it's, you know, it was hard at first. Farming is a lifestyle, and for many years that was a really tough concept for me to wrap my head around. And I, you know, it's not a Monday to Friday 8 to 5. It's, you know, it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning during calving season. It's if something breaks down, you're out there doing it. It's if it's minus 40, put on another coat, right? Like it's a lifestyle, and that was probably the hardest mental obstacle to overcome.
Good answer. You're good at answering questions.
Oh, thanks. I'm good at telling the truth.
So why have you decided on your farm here to have everything under one roof?
I like to be busy, and I like people. I very much found when I was just calving out cows and then selling steers, I was very disconnected from people. You know, we're pretty isolated farming. Again, we don't have a Monday to Friday day job. We don't go into town. We don't talk to people all the time. So you're pretty. It can be pretty lonely, and that mentally can take a toll and be cumbersome. So doing the farm to table program, it very much started with just ourselves, friends and family, but then there was a profitability to it, while simultaneously also getting that opportunity to get off the farm, to talk to some people, and then to educate others. You know, I learned so much coming to the farm, and coming into the egg industry, and I'm continually teaching others about agriculture and about you know, what we're doing and the sustainability in the industry, and how, you know, we're not the bad guys. We're trying to do the best while still making a buck, and we're not trying to hurt or hinder anybody by no means. So having it all in-house gave me the peace of mind that I can stand behind my product. I can comfortably say, I know everything that went into this animal. Not, I know everything that went into this animal in the last 6 months. I know what went into this animal since the day they were born. I know what went into it when I decided to breed that bull to that cow. So having that background, I think also helped put a lot of peace of mind into my customers. So it just made sense. Hi, my name is Ashely Perepelkin. I am a co-owner operator at Perepelkin Farms. We are located south of Condor in Clearwater County, and we're a mixed farm operation. So we have cow-calf pairs as well as grain. I do the cow-calf pair side, my husband does the grain side. I run about 100 to 120 cows calving, purebred and commercial Simmentals. We're about 60% on the purebred side, 40% on the commercial side. And then I also keep back replacement heifers as well as steers for our fat program and bull prospects for breeding. So we try to kind of keep everything in-house. Right now, all the calves are still with their mothers because we're doing construction down at my other pens where we normally wean and separate and sort. So we'll get to that next week most likely. But yeah, this is it. This is our fall grazing area. So we take our silage off and then kind of let it have a slight secondary regrowth, and then when we pull them off pasture, they'll graze this, the lower areas, the sloughs. They get a full quarter section on this side, and then they'll get basically 2 quarter sections
on the south side until it snows and until we start feeding our TMR mixed ration. Yeah, so this field kind of, we get our long stretch back there, and then it loops around to the northwest of us here. So it's about, I believe there's 70 acres of cultivated field here. My husband, he does rotational seeding. So I believe 2 years ago, or last year it was canola. This year it was barley. Next year it'll be either oats or wheat. So we kind of just rotate it. This year we did pull our silage off it. Last year, obviously being canola, we didn't pull our silage off it, so the cows got onto it a little bit later. But the next thing we like to do is I feed out here as much as possible. So I don't start calving until January 1st. So on top of them, like we cultivate it, we fertilize it, we seed it, let it grow, spray, get the best crop off it that we can. Then in the fall, what we do is we get the cows grazing on it, spreading their manure for the nitrogen cycle sort of thing, get that going on. And then also we feed across it. So I'll feed here pretty much until mid-December. Once everybody starts getting close to calving, I start calving January 1st. So once we start calving January 1st, we'll pull everybody back towards the barn and all that. Once everybody's done calving, then they'll come back out here again in the spring to graze on it again. Long-term soil health really should be on the forefront of every farmer's mind. You know, if you don't have good soil health, you're not going to have good crops that grow and all that jazz. So the biggest thing is soil nutrition. And we want to make sure that we're putting back into the soil what we're taking out of it with our crops. So that's part of the reason why we do rotational grazing. You know, we've done peas and canola and all that, and peas put nitrogen back in the ground, canola will take nitrogen out. So you'd find on some fields, if you did the same crop year after year after year after year, it's taking all the same nutrients out, so then you're going to be nutrient deficient in that zone. So in partnership with fertilizing and cultivating the fields, we do get the cattle to graze on it, because through their urine and poop, they're getting the nitrogen cycle back into the soil. So it's helping, again, give the nutrients back into the soil that way. We try not to overgraze any of our quarters, whether it is grain land or pasture land or anything like that. So I do try to keep them light on it. Foot traffic as well, you know, it's one thing that you don't really think about, but cattle tend to want to walk on the same path. So when we rotationally graze out, well, on our pastures, but out here when we move where we're feeding, I don't necessarily feed in feed bunks, I just drop it on the ground. Or if I am feeding in feed bunks, I'm moving them every few days, because what you'll notice is that you get compaction really bad with the cattle being on it and walking on it. So we try to move them around as frequently as possible so that we don't end up with that compaction on this grain land. I think a big thing right now in like the farming community and even urban community kind of looking in farmers is we've got this big sustainability word, right? And everybody wants to be sustainable, but for farmers doing it, sustainability is just simply a word. You got to have the practices that are going to make it sustainable, and then what makes it sustainable, and soil health is one of the forefront things of sustainability on the crop side, as well as a cow-calf operation. Because if you're not having good soil health, regardless in your silage fields, in your pastures, or on your hay fields, you're not gonna get that crop back to feed the animals. So, you know, this year, for example, we were in a drought year. Our one young hay field, I believe it's 3 years old, it produced, I think it was like half a bale to an acre, which is really, really low. That's a field that we normally pull 3.5 to 4 bale an acre off of. So now that didn't necessarily have anything to do with soil health, but because we do soil samples, because we fertilize, and because we manage it, we know that it didn't have anything to do with soil health, and it was due to lack of rain. So if you know that your soil health is good and that you're taking care of the land in that regard, then you can kind of eliminate the other questions as to why your productivity might not be up to snuff or at par. So this field itself, on average, we can pull anywhere from 12 to 14 ton of silage, which for oats or barley, that's pretty high. So that tells us that our sustainability and our soil health is good. It's where it needs to be. We test every single year. We test every single spring. Another reason why we graze this land is because we never drop straw on this quarter. So in order to put some of those nutrients back in, that's why we graze them. That's why we move the silage around, the TMR mixing, and why we spread it around this whole place is basically just, again, to keep putting more stuff back into the soil. I personally don't look at any feed that's left over in the bunks or around a bale or whichever. I don't look at that as waste, because ultimately if it's getting worked back into the soil, it's just adding nutrients, so it is getting utilized somewhere down the line.
So Ashely, what aspects of this farm are you most passionate about?
My kids. You know, it's incredible to see my kids growing up on a farm. My, 9-year-old and 10-year-old slash, they're 8 and 9 right now, but birthdays are right around the corner, so we're gonna give it to them. They both, they drive the side-by-side on the farm, and they help with chores, and they run the tractors. My 5-year-old and my 4-year-old are getting there and showing interest in it, and it's super cool how independent they are. They've all taught themselves how to ride a pedal bike. I'm pretty sure I was like 10 when I learned how to ride a pedal bike. I might not have been quite 10, but you know what I mean? Like, there's freedom. There's freedom for them to explore, explore the wilderness and explore the ground and the earth and everything that it gives us. But then there's also just like the freedom for them to explore as individuals themselves. And then seeing them grow up on the farm and be part of all the processes, be a part of the garden, be a part of the calving process, be a part of the day-to-day work that goes into it. It's pretty cool seeing them grow up out here.
Our chickens we have raised from chick, like when they were about 6 weeks old, 3 weeks old. We used to have them down there just because it was easier, because they were still little, and they would stay in their pen. But after we let them outside and gave them their boundaries, we'd chase them for the first couple of nights, and then they got a habit of going in when it gets dark, because we'll wait till it's pitch black and then have lights in there. And we'd check them for the first month, and then they had this good habit. So we stopped checking them, and here and there now some will get left out. And for example, these two have been left out because they weren't in the pen at times. So they were out in the cold, but they're still alive. Well, we have their water bucket over there, which I'll have to give them a little more water today. We do give them chop every now and then, because that's just what they eat mainly sometimes. This is all left, but we can see there's still a bunch of grass and garden stuff left over for them to eat. They also have our greenhouse, so there's still plenty green. Stay when we first got our chickens, when they were still chicks and we first let them out, for when they were older but not as old as this. We took 30 minutes to chase them all, every last one in, and then we still had to do a perimeter check and found 2 other ones, which added another 5 to 10 minutes because they were running around and they didn't know what they were supposed to do. But as they've caught on to their habit, they've known, okay, it's time to run out, okay, it's time to go in. Even if they don't go in, they're just left out in the dark, whatever. So as the sun sets, they'll see it's getting dark. So when it gets dark, they go into a spot where we can leave them. Yeah, they'll go in by themselves. Sometimes we'll have to chase a couple in. Most nights we just walk out, shut the door, slam the door shut, and walk away. So the hens, they'll go a little chaotic if I'm to grab one, which is okay, it's natural. Some of them go chaotic and they'll balk a lot, but then they'll calm down as you pet them and give them the comfort. And then you just place them back down and they're free to go. The roosters are somewhat harder, a little harder to catch, but they're still very easy. If I back away, a couple of them will come back and then I can try and catch one for you guys. see what goes on. So lots of the hens are now coming just because I'm backing away, out of the way. These are meat birds, so they won't lay eggs or anything. They're just solid chickens. They won't lay eggs, and then eventually they'll give you good meat that you can provide off of and get lots of the food that you need. The white are mainly hens. There's a couple white roosters. They're really just white. The reason we keep them in the garden is because there's way more food for them to provide off. So like this grass I picked, they're gonna peck at it. They'll get your hand here and there because they are like, what's this color? What is this? What do I do with it? My favorite part of having chickens is probably watching them grow up, naming them, because we'll give a few of our favorites names. And then killing them is one of our favorite parts because it's when we get to catch all of the chickens and then we never see them again. But it's kind of sad to let go of some of your favorite chickens that you've named with your favorite parts. Some people do keep them, although they're not gonna lay eggs or do anything like that. But, well, we don't keep them. It's just chickens. We'll get more next year. We'll find new favorites. So we let them out here, we feed them for the day, and then when it gets dark, they'll walk back in. If a couple of them are left out, then a couple of them are left out. If one gets out, we chase it back in. That's why we have to shut our gate properly, because otherwise the dogs will get in, the chickens will get out. Yeah, we just leave them for the day and then pack them up at night, slam the door and walk away.
So you've incorporated AI on your farm. So how did you find out about this technology?
So I was actually at an AI course. So AI stands for a couple different things depending on what room you're in. One for the cattle side of things is artificial insemination. So I was at an artificial insemination course when the instructor informed me about the AI technology for calving and calving assistance and calving camera help, and that really intrigued me because I'm a one-woman show. You know, I had a farmhand for a little bit, but it's hard financially to have good skilled labor. So AI it was the next step, really.
And can you explain to us how this AI is going to work on your farm?
Yeah, so with the cameras, ultimately you want them positioned so they see the cattle. If the cameras can see the cattle, ultimately they're watching them 24/7. So that's a lot better than me. I can't watch them 24/7, so the cameras can do that for me. Ultimately what it's gonna do is my main focus for it was calving assistance. So if it can alert me while I'm cooking supper with the kids or in the house doing family stuff, if it can alert me that I have a cow calving, I don't necessarily need to have my phone there watching it all the time to see if a cow is calving or not. A lot of complications can happen with calving. So calving is a very high stress cycle within the 12-year or 12-month calendar. The 90 days or 60 days of calving, depending on how long you're calving for, is a pretty high stress time period. So the AI is going to help to let me know when the cows are getting close, let me know when they are calving, let me know if that calf has successfully gotten their colostrum or not. So stuff that I used to spend time either hands-on trying to help this calf suck because I wasn't sure if it had, or tubing it, or going back on cameras. Now the AI is going to be able to kind of give me that info quicker and then just be another tool to use as being more efficient and being more productive in the day-to-day calving side of things. It also is going to help with, noticing sick animals sooner. So if we can treat antibiotics earlier or treat with, then ultimately the goal is that we don't have to treat as frequently or as long. So, and then you catch them before they're on a downhill. So if you get them at the peak of their illness, which visually we might not be able to see, but the camera might be able to pick it up based off of some mannerisms, behaviors, and stuff like that that we might not see. You can treat them sooner, so then they're not necessarily going to have a downhill that they have to come back up from. They're going to try to plateau a little bit.
So what types of equipment did you have to integrate into your farm here to make it possible?
So I was pretty fortunate that this AI system with my in-laws' house was close enough so that we just put some more like smart hubs on down here so that it had access to the Wi-Fi, and then power, which we've already had power at our pump house. We already had power in the barn. So the biggest thing was the cameras themselves. Obviously, yes, your power / internet and Wi-Fi connection is critical. That for us wasn't a huge hill. It was probably actually the easiest one. And then the toughest one was integrating the cameras and then camera placement and position.
Could you explain how the AI functions?
Yeah, so it uses facial recognition, very similar to our phones and all the other stuff. So it's just gonna recognize the cattle. And then it's gonna recognize what is normal and what is new behavior for that animal. So, you know, normal behavior for an animal, when you put feed out, they go up to the feed bunks and eat. When they're laying down, they're not up and down and up and down and up and down. So behavioral changes, it'll alert. And then also because it can visually be alerted to, you know, a tail out, starting to calve, all that jazz, it can see it. So then that's when the alerts and notifications are gonna come through that it's like, hey, you know, not only has behavior changed, but we actually see something that wasn't there for the longevity of this animal, and then now it's there, like something's going on. So again, you put in your info in the sense of, I'm gonna be calving this date to this date, so then it's gonna start tracking some of that stuff. And then for, you know, estrus detection, which is when they're in heat cycles, if they're standing there to be mounted and a bull is mounting them, you can visually see a bull mounting a cow.
Right.
So that's going to detect visually with their recognition software that, you know, a mating might have happened or a breeding could have happened, and it's basically sends you a screenshot of that time, and then it'll tell you what animal it is and all that. So the other cool thing is, you know, I'm fortunate. Most of my cows look different from the rest. But you know, if you walk into a herd of red Angus and they're all red and they have no distinct features,
right,
you don't know number one from number two. So the nice thing is that the camera can pick that up. The camera can recognize them and is aware of that based off of multiple factors. So then it lets you know, hey, cow number 2 got bred by bull number 10.
So in terms of calving cameras, I actually have 2 sets of visual cameras. So we've got 2 on the power pole. The big one up top is actually, it's an Amcrest camera. So that is one of the cameras that I very first started with when I invested in calving cameras. So it doesn't track anything, it's just visual. This smaller one on the pump house, and then also that smaller one to the right of the pump house. There is a smaller one underneath the big one on the barn, and then there's also one in that shelter, and then we have another one on the other side of the barn as well as in the barn. So those cameras, they're AI cameras, and those are the ones that will actually visually track an animal, track their estrus cycle, track their calving, their rate of growth, rate of gain, phenotypical scores it's going to start tracking, all that stuff. We are currently in the middle of construction, so this is why there's no pens down here. Normally there's pens and everything's divided. So we're gonna have 7 pens in total down here. The pregnant cows will kind of be in this main big pen, which will have a camera looking at them. From there, they go into our maternity pen, which will be over here with our shelter, where they'll have 2 or 3 cameras looking at them. From there, they go into the barn where they'll either calve in the barn or be in the barn with their calf for a bit. And then from there, they'll go to what they're gonna be as breeding pens. So everybody's gonna be split into groups of 25 to 30. So they'll go in there with their cow-calf pair. So then once we get to breeding, come March 24th approximately, when the bulls get kicked out into their designated pens, and eventually it'll also be able to track what bull is mounting what cow. So that'll be nice again for tracking when everybody's calving. Because I calve by myself, this is insanely critical and really beneficial for me. Like I've got 4 kids, they're in extracurricular activities, they're doing a bunch of stuff. So if I can sleep during calving season while simultaneously have cows calving, that's ideal. It's like a second set of eyes 24/7. So one of the main things that we wanted to do was make sure that it was tracking things accurately. So one of the easiest ways to do that when you're covering a large area that had limited power was to put your cameras at a focal point. So this is our pump house. So this is where all 4 of our pens would come in and drink out of each watering hole. So this pen wasn't big enough, so we needed to expand it. But once you expanded it and pushed them out into a bigger field, you lost sight with the camera. So again, we decided to do a revamp of pen construction. So we actually added water wells out and about, and we've taken power to all of them. So then there will be cameras set up there, again, looking at them. Watering, like the watering hole or the feed bunk, are the ideal places to be putting the AI cameras, because those are going to be what you see the most. Obviously in our calving pen, we're pointing towards our bedding pack. We're pointing towards where we're anticipating the cow to be showing her calving signs and stuff like that. So ideally, when we bring them into the barn, what we're wanting to contribute to the cows is comfort. Again, we want to keep everything as low stress and nice as possible for our mothers. So the least amount of moving is best for them. So this is the first pen that they will go into, because it is our closest pen to where we have our head gate. In the event that I do need to intervene and help her during her calving process, we wanted it to be close to the other pen where she'd have to go. So again, we're just always trying to keep in the forefront of our minds, animal quality, care, calm attitudes, and everything like that. I really like our tarp barn for this. It allows a lot of light in, and it's got a really high rooftop. So it seems that when the cows come in here, they're just super calm and relaxed. And then again, we have the buddy system. So at no point is a cow in here on her own. She's in here with multiple cows to try and help keep the stress level low. So once a cow has calved in here, keeping in mind it's heated, so we're sitting about -5 to 0 degrees in here, I let them do their process. So they will lick their calves. The calf will get up, get the colostrum first, which is the very first milk, which is super important. They have to be getting that colostrum within the first 6 hours of birth. So when you have your calm cows and easy calving, what we call vigor is how quickly the calves get up and start nursing. We have found that our vigor is actually really quick. Calves to get chilled, because it'll actually take them longer to get up and nurse, even if the mother is stimulating them with licking them. So again, we want to keep everybody in here -5 to 0 degrees, not catching a chill when they do get to go outside, but also not catching a chill once they're in here after they calve. So as long as they have stimulation and are relatively warm, then the calves will jump up to nurse pretty quick within those first 6 hours. So that's awesome and super handy. Once they have nursed and they're good, then we give them their vitamins and supplements, tag them to identify them, and then they go back out to the maternity pen with their mother for about 12 to 24 hours. And then from there, they'll get kicked out on this side of the barn into what I call our pair pen. So that's where mothers with calves all go. So then they have some friends to play with, and they can run around and jump and play and do all that jazz. And they're not getting stolen by other moms, because that happens sometimes too. So they've got their colostrum, they've gotten their identification tags, they've gotten their vitamins, and then about the 24-hour mark, they can go out into the other pair pen and play with their buddies, run around, jump, and do what baby cows do.
So what exactly does the AI measure?
So it is gonna be able to measure a lot of things right now, because it's still beta, it's still early on. Right now the biggest thing is calving notification and then estrus detection. So eventually it will measure how they're walking, their conformation scores, or how they look. It'll be able to measure, I could be wrong on this part, but I believe that it can measure like respiratory rates. So it'll notice how fast that, like if a cow is panting, it's gonna be able to visually see that the cow is panting, which would correlate to distress. In calving,
Right.
that's, a telltale sign that they're calving. So it can kind of track all that stuff. In terms of like replacement heifers, it can measure your rate of gain. So instead of having to run your animals through a squeeze every week or every 2 weeks to see how they're growing and how they're gaining, if for bull replacement prospects or replacement heifers, or even when you're finishing your steers for the farm to table program, you're not gonna have to run them through the squeeze to get that data information anymore. The camera's going to be able to say, this cattle spent X amount of time at the bunk, which should correlate to eating X amount of feed. They weigh X amount of pounds. So then you can see your rate of gain and which cattle are performing for you and which aren't. So then genetically, we can make improvements to our breeding program to keep those animals back without the guesswork, without the having to run the cattle through a squeeze and having to track it and then having to look at yourself and then say, okay, well, why is this steer or heifer or bull not gaining as much as the others? Is it a genetic thing, or was he sick for a week and we missed it? Or is he getting bullied at the bunk feeder and not spending time at the feeder? The AI is just gonna be able to kind of make us aware of that stuff a little bit sooner than we could on our own. And especially during busy seasons like calving season, as much as I say I look at every single animal every single day, when calving season gets pretty busy, sometimes you don't, right? Your main focus is those cows that are having calves, not necessarily the replacement pen or the bull prospect pen. This camera here basically points out to what I call our bred pen, or what used to be our bred pen. So it's actually super cool. It has a double view on it. So the one has more of a zoomed in automatically, and then the other view is more of a zoomed out. In the event that I wasn't picking cows that were showing signs of early calving based off of when they got bred, their bagging up, tail swishing, all the typical signs of a cow calving. If I wasn't picking it up and getting them into the maternity pen, the biggest thing was that we wanted a camera pointing to that big bedding pack to then catch anything that was coming up. So I would feed kind of out in the back, and then they would come up to their bedding and lay on here. So I am really happy with the fact that we actually only had one cow that calved outside of the maternity pen last year. And that's kind of my fault more than anything. I saw she was calving and I was just like, meh, we'll just let her be. I let her calve out there. She's a little bit on the mean side, so I just let her do her thing, and then I brought her into the barn afterwards. But other than that, this camera was able to kind of catch anything that I didn't catch, was able to shoot me a text message, and then I came and basically assessed, yep, she is gonna be doing something, or no, she's not, and then either brought her in or left her out. And then once they get in here, I have a camera set up in the shelter, and it looks directly on top of the shelter. What we're going to do is, this will still be our maternity pen. It will basically stay the same size. I can hold easily like 30 to 35 in here relatively comfortably. I can put more in if I wanted to, but the whole point of this pen is they don't actually stay in here for long. They basically come in, have their baby, go through the barn, and then go out to their pen. So this will be one of those pens We're gonna have an alleyway. You can kind of see where it got built up. So we're still gonna have an L alley for sorting. And then pretty much straight across from this pen is gonna be a pen. And then straight that way from the little blue culvert out there is gonna be a pen. And then there's gonna be 2 more on the other side that go as far as those bales. So the farther pens are gonna be like our replacement heifers that we're gonna keep for breeding. And then the farther pen to the south, I'm like directionally challenged here, the farther pen to the south is gonna be like the bull prospect pen. So the bulls will be penning right next to the heifers, which some people do, some people don't. It honestly kind of depends. I personally quite like it. I found that it has kept the bulls a little bit more level-headed. There'll be electric fence in between. It's kind of what we've been doing for the last 2.5, 3 years. So that's kind of nice. And then I find that when they're young boys around young females doing their cycle, they actually kind of mellow out a bit and then they don't get so rude. That could also totally be false information and my bulls could just be quiet bulls. That's a possibility too. And then from our L alley out those 2 red gates is gonna be a pen with an alleyway down kind of where this fence line is right now. And then right near where that white bucket is where another culvert with water and power is. And then there'll be another pen over there. So coming out of the L alley to these red gates, and then if you follow directly down that fence line is gonna be another alley. And then there'll be basically like a 200, we measured it out the other day. It's gonna be 220 feet by 130 or something like that. Like they're big pens. So that's gonna be a big pen and then a pen right next to it as well. So as the cows kind of rotate through, there will be 4 pens that will have pairs in them, anywhere from 20 to 30 cow-calf pairs in them. So we actually started calving in March and then transferred it to January just because this is a low area. You know, you can kind of see some areas of water that just really hold on to the water. So we switched to January because then this is all solid frozen and the risk of disease is less. And then we adopted the purebred cows into that and it just worked because they also calve in January, so it's worked out perfectly. And the nice thing is, so these girls, they all get bred about March 24th. The bull will stay with them for about 43 days. The bulls will all get pulled and then they'll get kicked back out into that north field. So once they're bred, they're bred. Once it's done, it's done. And then they all go back to hanging out with each other until they get ready to kick out to pasture in June. So we do try to keep a nice rotation without having a ton of animals down here all the time. And it's been a pretty good program that I've developed and that I've created and come up with. As a rancher, born and raised in the city, coming into the agriculture industry, I am aware that my knowledge is, I don't want to say lacking because I've done a lot of continuing education and a lot of learning, but it's never enough, right? You can always keep learning. The other thing is it's data. You know, you can make really good sound decisions both on your ranching side and your farming side if you have the data, if you have the value in front of you. So when you're comparing weaning weights one year to the next year and collecting that data, you can see statistically that this cow is weaning a calf that is 50% her body weight, or you're seeing that this cow is actually very fluctuant in her weaning weights and she's kind of all over the place. Obviously we want good physical traits, not poor physical traits. So she can actually visually look at a cow and then rate those based off of like good, better, best, kind of. That'll be another thing that'll help, is that she'll be able to kind of do a huge collective data grab in seconds. You know, for us, it takes us so long to look at an animal to say, this is what their feet are, this is what their legs are, this is what their udder is, this is what this is how this animal looks. For her, she can do 100 in a split second. So they're gonna measure how their feet look. Cattle, when you start adding a lot of weight into the cattle, their feet are probably one of the most critical things on them. So if they're getting what we call like cross toes, so it's where their toes, instead of being straight down and nice, they start crisscrossing or they start curving. So that will start to cause lameness, sores, abscesses, and we don't want any of that. So when we're scoring feet, we want to make sure that they're staying symmetrical and straight. One's not bigger than the other, it's not twisted in, not twisted out kind of thing. We'll also look at their legs. So making sure that their legs are relatively straight, not like bowed out or bowed in. Same with their knees. We don't want them like knocking their knees or, you know, super out. So it looks at all that type of thing, those traits. On the female side, it looks at their udders, so where they're going to be milked. We want to make sure that the udders are staying relatively high, because then it is easier for the calf to get in to nurse. If the udders are really dropping and starting to drag, the calf actually has to like drop lower, and that is abnormal to them. They really want to go and stick their nose in and up. So having a nice high udder and having a tight udder are good physical traits for our females to have. And then for our males, the bone structure to them, just making sure that not only are they going to build muscle, but they're going to be able to stay sound, which is like not sore, not go lame. Because if they're sore, they're not going to breed. And when the bulls only work for 43 days out of the year, they got to work those days.
So tell us how AI is going to benefit your cattle operation.
Yeah, so ultimately, I'm hoping to be more productive. I want to not only be more productive with my cattle and with tracking them and making sure that they're happy and healthy, but I also want to be more productive with my family. You know, I 4 kids, they're pretty busy. They're in sports, they're in schools, and for 2 months out of a 12-month period, my main focus is the cows, which is understandable, and it's a sacrifice that we all make, but at the same time, it does put strain on the family as a whole. So having AI to help me be an extra set of eyes to give me that heads up and then give me that peace of mind that I don't necessarily need to be at home 110%. I can take off for, you know, the cheer competition or for the hockey tournament or a game or whichever, and I'm not panicking that this cow either is or isn't going to calve. I should have I'll have an idea. So the peace of mind in that, and then on a financial basis is again having productive genetics in the herd, having productive cattle. You know, we feed test everything, I TMR mix everything. We really, you know, we want to make our feed go for as long as we can to really extend the bottom line and extend the dollar of things. And if we have AI, the cost of AI to run 24/7 is going to be cost less than an employee with potentially better results.
Will AI help you to tell like which bull bred which cow?
Yes. Yeah, so with the camera one, there's multiple AI technologies out there. Some of them are ear tags, some of them are like the camera systems, but regardless, it's a proximity. So it's proximity for duration, right? And again, visually, if the camera is seeing a bull mounting a cow, we're going to go with the assumption that that bull serviced that cow. Now, obviously, if you're running multiple bulls per a pen, you know, both of those bulls might service that cow the same day, so that becomes a little bit tricky. But ultimately, yeah, I can get it down to the day of when some of these girls were bred, and then the tracking of it. So some of these girls I know are inherently longer gestation periods, so they hold their pregnancies for longer, and some of them are shorter. AI can track all that data information and can, you know, say, hey, heads up, although this cow is due January 1st, historically she has always calved X amount of days early. So I can then plan, hey, December 25th, she's probably gonna calve. So it can track that. It can, you know, it can do a lot of things.
And so AI helps you predict when the cows are about to calf?
Yeah.
Or when they calf, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of things, a lot of things start to tell you when a cow is going to calve. Their vulva starts to swell, their bags start to fill with milk, their tails start to swish, behaviorally they change. But in order to see all that, you have to watch them.
Right.
So AI can track those changes, but then AI can also say, you know, on March 25th, this bull serviced this cow. So based off of I believe it's a 283-day gestational period, I know that they're going to calve January 1st, hypothetically. Obviously, you know, Mother Nature sometimes plays a factor in that, but it will track those other signs like the vulva swelling, the behavioral changes, the bag, all that jazz. But I can, you know, I know, for example, I'm expecting approximately 50 calves within the first 10 days of January. So I already know that. Now I just got to wait for January to roll around.
Yeah. So you've said you've been working with AI for over 3 years now. What have you learned and what benefits have you seen?
I've learned that camera placement is huge. You know, what way is your sun rising? What way is your sun setting? When are you going to be able to be out there? If, like, you know, again, if the sun is kind of blocking the view of the camera, or just like what angles are best. You know, is an overhead view better than a side view, or just kind of all that stuff. So camera placement, we learned a lot about that. Pen setup and space. You know, we were kind of already learning that, and probably would have still, we would have got to the same conclusion with or without AI in terms of our pen setup and improvements that we could make. But we also did ensure that, hey, you know, when we're building these, we're gonna put a yard light up here, we're gonna pop up a camera up here, we're gonna do this stuff. So let's build it where we have not just one power plug-in, but we've got multiple power plug-ins. So it's changed our expansion and how we're gonna grow and how, you know, we are setting things up. Again, for the better, and we're getting multiple benefits from it, in the sense of everything is just kind of operating a little bit smoother and more streamlined, so it's good.
Good. So with some of the negative media attention that farming gets, how does that influence your decisions that you make on the farm?
The negative media attention doesn't necessarily influence the decisions that we're making, but it has encouraged me to kind of speak out a little bit about it, to be more transparent about what we do, but then farming as in general. You know, there's some really good media out there about antibiotic-free, antibiotic-free and hormone-free, and the reality is, it's all antibiotic free. By the time the food hits the plate, it's had to follow some pretty serious CFA guidelines. You know, so you know, we're not pumping a bunch of stuff into these animals for no benefit. We're also not throwing a ton of antibiotics at the animals, because that costs us money. So the negative media has kind of encouraged me to be transparent and to have those conversations and to have those hard conversations and to educate, you know, educate others, but also be willing to get educated myself, and being open to that aspect of it. So I feel like it's definitely opened doors. And then it's created curious minds. You know, consumers are starting to ask questions, and that's great, because it's giving us the opportunity and the platform to answer those questions and to have those candid conversations with them.
So tell me, what type of farming techniques do you use to make sure your farm is sustainable?
So many things. You know, we utilize the straw packs and the bedding packs as fertilizer for the fields. We rotational graze. So when the cows are home and are on property, we want to get them moving, get them to spread out, you know, their poop, because it's got a lot of good nitrogen and nutrients in it. So getting them to move around, helps us have to cut back on fertilizer bills in the spring, which economically, financially for us is better. You know, sustainability, it's the big topic right now in the ag industry, and it's a big mountain to climb, but the reality is we all want to be viable and sustainable economically and with the cattle, you know. If I'm having to have a high turnover rate with my cattle because I'm not feeding them efficiently, I'm not having them be happy and healthy, it is gonna hurt the bottom line of the finances. So by implementing technology and by implementing quiet cows and new pens and good demeanor, we're getting sustainability in the cattle, we're getting longevity of life, we're getting good mothers, we're getting healthy mothers, we're getting, you know, a higher return on an investment, for a lack of better term. So I think it's, you know, I struggle to find a farmer that isn't already doing sustainable farming practices, because it's expensive to be a sustainable farmer, and it's more expensive to not be a sustainable farmer, because then you're just throwing money where it doesn't need to go.
So Ashely, tell me, what advice do you have for future people who are wanting to get into AI for their farming operation?
Research it and see what works for your farm. You know, every operation is going to be different. I am very fortunate that I can have a barn, I can have close pens, I can have power, I can have camera. I'm not blind to the fact that is very fortunate for me. So there is a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of AI out there in many different ways. You know, the dairy industry has AI coming out the wazoo for the cattle side of the operations. So just take the time to research it and then make the investment. You know, it's a big investment up front, but in the long run, you know, especially with the price of cows, 1 or 2, and it's, you know, it's paid for itself. So do the research and then make the investment. Phone some people, and then talk to the other farmers that have it on their operation. They'll tell you the truth. They'll tell you if it's working or if it's not. Yeah. So there's you know, there's other technologies out there. One of the ones that we have also kind of been looking into is their boluses. So it's a magnet. Well, they're not magnetic, but they're boluses. They go into the cows, then they go into the rumen. So the rumen is like where the digestive stuff happens. So what that's going to track is feed intake, water intake. So again, because it's tracking that stuff, it can track health. The first thing a cow is going to do is go off food and water when they're not feeling good. So it can track that and then let you know the trends. It'll also tell you the kind of rate of gain in that aspect of it. And then it'll also be able to help, again, track calving based off of increased heart rate, increased rumen temperature. All that stuff correlates to, you know, labor and calving and starting to calve. So AI, there's a lot of technologies out there. Some work for the farms and for certain operations. Boluses are kind of cool, but then you still have to have a central location where the cows are going to go, where all that data can offload onto the cloud and to the server, and so you can track it. So having a water station is great, but if you have 4 different water stations where different pens are going, now you need 4 different places to offload that data. So there's pros and cons to every AI technology. And like I said, I think just like researching what technology would work for your operation, but don't be afraid to adopt the technologies, because at the end of the day, if you can eliminate an employee, it's worth the investment, really.
So Ashely, as you said earlier, we're coming up on calving season in January.
Yep.
What are you excited about that AI is going to help you with?
Well, calving season is on its own is always exciting. You know, you get to see what genetics you picked and if it's going to work, and you get to see the babies, and that's exciting. AI in partnership with that is exciting because I just get to streamline everything and then feeling more efficient. You know, we all want to be efficient. We want everything in our lives to be quick and efficient and easy, and AI is going to be able to help with that. I don't necessarily have to stare at a cow for 6 hours to see if their tail's swishing because the wind is blowing the wrong way or their tail swishing because they're going to calve, right? So AI is going to be able to help just streamline that stuff, and then hopefully help give me a little bit of free time to spend more time with the kids and with the family.
That's good. Yeah. So Ashely, will AI help decrease the mortality of your herd?
Ideally, yes. You know, in a perfect world, yes. Because it's going to be able to track those complications, those calving complications, or those, you know, pneumonia sickness, or we call it FPT, which is failure of passive transfer, so not enough colostrum. So, you know, that's pretty critical in the calf's life. So those all attribute to, you know, your loss or your mortality rate. And ideally, if AI can be your extra set of eyes, like it's like having a farmhand 24/7 watching these cattle. And you know, if your farmhand came up to you and said, "Hey, this cow is getting sick. I think we need to treat him with antibiotics." You're going to treat him with antibiotics. And again, you know, when you have 100 or more animals out and you're doing chores and you're calving and you're doing everything, you might not necessarily get eyes on every single animal. Not having eyes on every single one of those calves, especially during calving season, you know, 2 days can be a huge difference. 12 hours in a newborn's calf life can be the difference between success and failure. So AI is going to be able to be that 24/7 set of eyes if you have your cameras in the right spot and if they're seeing things. And then the other thing will be to answer some of the questions, you know. So for breeding and conception, did the bull not cover that cow? Did the cow cycle? You know, why is she open? Why is your open rate what it is, or how can you make it better? You know, we always want to improve. I strive for 3% in a calendar year. So I want less than a 3% loss, and that goes for my mortality while calving, my open animals, so the ones that are not pregnant that should have been pregnant, and then that also includes my growing them into heifers and then into our farm to table program. So AI will help be able to notify me of any ailments earlier, so then you can do more, you know, preventative measures, you know, be proactive, not reactive sort of thing, and just to kind of overall be better.
Okay, well, that's all we have, Ashely. Thank you very much for your time and your knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for coming, and thanks for giving us this opportunity to show what we're doing at the farm, and yeah.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through our farm and seeing what improvements we're making to help improve our animal welfare, our animal handling, and just our overall husbandry. We're hoping to continue to be sustainable farmers and really just work towards a brighter, better future, not only for our cattle, but also for ourselves within the industry. Obviously, building our pens, we're keeping animal welfare in the forefront of our minds while we're building them as we continue to grow and bring in technologies to our farming operation with sustainability. I'm excited to see what our future will bring, and you know, we never stop growing as farmers, so it'll be exciting to see where this place is in a few years. Okay, Bo, let's go work some cows.